Hello there. So, welcome to the 6th week. We are nearing the halfway mark in this course. Last week we completed the discussion on central forces, basically the scattering problems. This week I am going to start with rigid body dynamics or rigid body motion. In my several years of teaching, I have always found that students find this topic, the rigid body motion, very difficult. And after looking at their difficulties, I felt that probably somewhere in the in the beginning, in the description of state of the rigid body, and later when we are discussing the dynamics, the idea of instantaneous axis of rotation, these two are probably the hardest concepts to grasp for students. So, I am going to spend little extra time on these ideas. In the first week, I will talk only about the kinematics, and in the second part, we will talk about the Euler's equations which govern the motion of the rigid bodies. Okay. Now, to begin with, let us first define what is the meaning of a rigid body. So, if you take a whatever shaped body, which is basically a system consisting of individual particles. Let me say there are n particles in this system, and these n particles, if they are located at say r1 vector, r2 vector and so on, then the distances between pair of particles, that is r I minus r j, remains constant throughout the motion of the rigid body. So, whichever way it moves, like this pointer which is in my hand, whatever it does, the distance between say this point and this point, it always remains same as it moves through the space. Okay? And this is not true for just one pair of points, but all pairs of points, pairwise, the distance will remain constant, and that is the definition of rigid body, and intuitively it is very clear what I mean by that, that it does not change its shape or size. Now, the total number of coordinates in this system, if you think of this as a system of n particles, would be 3n, and eventually when we describe the motion of the particle, I need to give all these 3n coordinates as a function of time t. However, the number of degrees of freedom would be less than 3n because I have constraints now, and all these equations which you see here, these are the equations of constraint, that distance between two particles remains constant. But how many are those? Those are n into n minus 1 by 2, those many pairs are there. So, those many constraints are there. Now, if you look at number of coordinates, that is growing as 3n, that is growing linearly with n, and the number of constraints here, they are going as n square, which means very quickly the number of constraints will outgrow or become larger than the number of coordinates. But that of course cannot happen. The key here is that all these constraints that you are looking at, they are not independent of each other. Those constraints are dependent on each other. That means some of those equations can be written in terms of the other equations. So, the number of equations, independent equations, is far less than this number here, n into n minus 1 by 2. How many is slightly tricky to calculate. So, what I am going to do is to find the number of degrees of freedom of the rigid body, basically that would have been 3n minus the independent number of independent constraints on the system. Okay. Intuitively, we know the answer. The number of degrees of freedom for a rigid body motion is 6. That is basically when it moves through the space, you can think of center of mass taking 3 coordinates and the orientation is remaining 3 coordinates. To make this idea more rigorous or understand this idea clearly, let me try something like this. If I take 3 non-collinear points, then the claim is that the rest of the rigid body the location of remaining points of the rigid body is automatically fixed. Okay. To give you an idea, suppose if I hold one point of this rigid body fixed and I give you coordinates of this, can you figure out the coordinates of the remaining points? No, because they could have been anywhere in the space leaving this point constant. So, there are several possibilities. I will fix one more point. If I fix one more point, even then I cannot determine the location of all other particles, because I can rotate the body about the line joining these 2 points. But if I fix the third point, then the orientation of rigid body in space is fixed. So, basically that is how you get 6 degrees of freedom, but putting it in mathematical terms, I would do something like this. Suppose I have 3 non-collinear points whose locations are R1, R2 and R3. Okay? That is the given to us. If that is given to us, then if I take another point Rk, can I find the location of Rk just by knowing R1, R2, R3? And now I have constraint equations. So, basically Rk minus R1 I know is Ck1, this number I know. Rk minus R2 also I know, and Rk minus R3 also I know. And then I have in Rk there are 3 numbers, 3 coordinates, and I have remaining everything else is known in this system of equations except Rk. So, you have 3 unknowns and 3 equations. So, there are 3 equations there and you have 3 unknowns. So, you can solve for the 3 coordinates of Rk. So, this is what I mean by saying, if I give you 3 points, I can find every other point, the location of every other point just from these 3 points. But then these 3 points would require 9 coordinates, and in these 3 points there are 3 constraints already. So, R1 minus R2 modulus is also fixed, R2 minus R3 modulus is also fixed. So, basically I have 3 constraints in 3 particles, 3 locations R1, R2, R3. So, out of 9 coordinates, I only actually need to give you 6 coordinates, because there are 3 constraints. Okay? That is how the number of degrees of freedom of a rigid body would come to basically 6. In other words, again going back to this example, if I take one point, I need to tell you 3 coordinates. Okay? Once I give you 3 coordinates, I fix the second point. Now, second point can be anywhere on the surface of the sphere whose radius is R12, okay? Which means to fix the location of second point, I only need 2 more coordinates, which is basically theta and phi in the spherical coordinate system. Okay? The R is fixed. Once I have fixed these 2, so that is basically 5 of them, and once I have fixed these 2 about this line, the third point makes only a single angle. Okay? It can be anywhere on the circle with respect to the line joining these 2 points. That will require only 1 coordinate. So, basically 3 points, but first point you need to give 3 coordinates, second point you need to give 2 coordinates, and for third point I only need to give you 1 coordinate, remaining 2 coordinates can be found from the constraints. So, that is how the number of degrees of freedom for a rigid body comes to 6. Okay. Now, how do I describe which 6 coordinates do I use? I can of course do the same thing that I have done here. For every rigid body, you fix 3 points. For the first point you give 3 coordinates, for the second point you give 2 coordinates, and the third non-collinear point you give only 1 coordinate, and that would be enough. So, those 6 coordinates also can be used as generalized coordinates. However, when we are trying to solve the equations of motion later, remember the choice of generalized coordinates actually depends on how simple that would make my problem. This is what we argued in our first class in the when I was describing Lagrangian mechanics. The choice of generalized coordinates must be such that first of all they are independent, but in addition if they do not make your calculation simpler, what is the point? And it will turn out that this choice probably would not be the best choice, and people over the centuries have figured out the best choice for this. So, I will describe that in a moment. To describe the state of the rigid body, what I am going to do is this. Let us start by assigning each body a coordinate system, which we will call it as body fixed coordinate system. Okay. So, given a rigid body, you find one point, fix that one point and take that as a origin and construct three coordinate axis with respect to that point. Okay. Choose the orthogonal one and assume that this coordinate system is attached to the body. So, whenever body moves, the coordinate system also moves with it, it turns with it, it translates with it. Okay. Here is example. So, in this example I have just a cube sitting here. Okay. I am going to pick one corner of that cube which we cannot see, which is basically diagonally opposite this top point, this point here at the bottom. I will fix that as my origin. Okay. And this curve that you see here shows the curve along which this body's, that particular point of that body will move, and along with that the coordinate system also will move. So, here is the if you look at this, as the body moves you can see there are two coordinate systems. So, I will stop here. Can you can go back a little? Yeah, here you can see the point O, and you can see the two coordinate systems. One is a red coordinate system and one is a green coordinate system. And if you look at this closely enough, the red coordinate system always maintains its. So, look at this, the red coordinate system is always parallel to the space fixed coordinate system, through this coordinate system through which we are watching this entire motion of rigid body, whereas the green ones are attached to the edges of this rectangle, this cuboid, and as the cuboid moves, the green axes are also moving. Okay. So, this is what is the this is what we call as the body fixed coordinate system. This coordinate system moves with the body and turns and rotates in the space with the body. So, the orientation is also embedded or included in some sense in that coordinate system. Here is one more example. In this example, there is a coin, and this coin is basically rolling on the surface of a table. We will choose the center of that coin as the point which we want to fix. So, that point of course will go around in the circle about the z axis, and the body fixed coordinate system, quite obviously given a circular disc, what coordinate system would I use? Look at the symmetry of the disc. One of course will be axis passing through the center and perpendicular to the disc, that would be one axis, and the remaining two axes would be in the plane of the disc, but that you can choose arbitrarily because there is a cylindrical symmetry. And as this one rotates, this can rotate, you can see that here the red coordinate system is turning with the coin, and the green one maintains its orientation. Green coordinate system remains parallel to this blue, which is a space fixed coordinate system. So, if I turn this little more, you can see that the red one, remember the coin is rolling. So, as it rolls, the x and y axis which are in the plane of the coin, they will be turning too. Okay. So, that this is the motion. So, this gives you an idea of what we mean by body fixed coordinate system. And if I give you the 3 axes, the location or orientation of 3 axes I prime, j prime and k prime, as we will call them, does that fix the state or orientation of the rigid body? Yes, because you see, with respect to I prime, j prime, k prime or body fixed coordinate system, what happens to the points of the rigid body? They are stationary. Okay. In the moving frame, in the green frame here, all the points, they are independent of time, they are stationary in that frame, they do not move at all. So, if I give you I prime, j prime and k prime, the new coordinate system, with respect to that coordinate system, I know the location of each point. Now, that would be enough to calculate the individual points location as the body moves. Okay. So, what we have done is this: the coordinates of the points in general, when the motion of the rigid body occurs, the coordinates will be time dependent. What we are going to do by building the system like this, the coordinates of the point with respect to the moving coordinate system, they will remain independent of time, but the coordinate system itself would be moving, and we will only describe the motion of the coordinate system rather than the motion of the points. Okay. So, that is the idea. Okay. So, let me make this formal. Let me take a rigid body here. Okay. So, this is the rigid body. Then you take a point O, which is a fixed point, and with respect to this fixed point, I will draw this I prime and j prime, these 2 axes, and k prime of course is also there, may be parallel perpendicular to the plane of this board. And in the similar way, you have this space fixed coordinate system, which is I and j. Okay. And as the body moves, of course, this point O will also move and I prime j prime will be moving. So, consider one instant where the body is here with this orientation, okay, with this given orientation, and you take some other point P of this rigid body. Okay. Now, clearly the r vector basically is going to be the vector to point O plus the OP vector. Okay. So, r vector is basically capital RO vector, as I have written there, and plus u vector. You see, when I write this in a vector form, it is a vector form, it is coordinate independent. Okay. You do not have to worry about the coordinates, but I do want to think of the coordinates. So, look at this u vector. U vector basically that is OP vector. I can use the space fixed coordinate system and write that as a x I cap plus y j cap plus z j cap. Okay. This is with respect to fixed coordinate system, because I am choosing I cap, j cap, k cap, which are parallel to the coordinate axis. But the same u vector can be decomposed in terms of I prime, j prime and k prime too. Okay. So, let us do that, and let me say u vector is x prime I prime plus y prime j prime and plus k prime z prime k prime. This is with respect to the body fixed coordinate system. Okay. This is basically with respect to this green coordinate system which I have drawn here. And what is the connection between the two? The connection between the two is basically both are orthogonal coordinate systems, I j k and I prime j prime and k prime. So, basically once I give you x prime y prime z prime, I can calculate x y z by multiplying this by a 3 by 3 matrix. This is basically a simple rotation operation. Okay. So, or if you do not want to think of rotation at this moment, it is basically a linear transformation from an orthogonal coordinate system to another orthogonal coordinate system. And since it is a linear transformation, I can express it as a 3 by 3 matrix. Okay. And I will write it as x, y, z. So, these are the space fixed coordinates sorry, coordinates with respect to space fixed axis is equal to x prime, y prime, z prime. I have written it in a column matrix and I have put that additional b there to indicate that these three numbers are with respect to. See, once you, right now I am using symbol, so it is okay, but when you are using simply numbers, the two column matrices would look same. So, generally it is a good idea to say that this set is with respect to the body fixed coordinate system, and that is why I put that b there. Okay. So, it is basically a into u b, and this symbol u b here, this symbol stands for the coordinates of u with respect to the body fixed coordinate system. Okay. Now, what will happen is this: as the body moves through the space, what will change? Basically, I want the motion of point P. Okay. When I say I want to describe motion of rigid body, basically in a way I need to specify the motion of individual points. It is a system of those particles. So, the motion of this point P is basically included in r vector, which will be function of time t. Now, r vector is nothing but rho, but rho is the point that is also moving with the rigid body. So, if I look at this rho, that will also be function of time t. And then now the third one, the u vector we are going to write it as this transformation at into ub. Now, remember ub is independent of time, because in that frame the coordinates of the point P in the body fixed coordinate system, the coordinates of point P do not change. This is independent of time. The matrix, which is basically I prime, j prime and k prime, contains the information about these three unit vectors. This will be time dependent, and how many parameters are needed there, how many degrees of freedom this matrix A contains is the question, and the claim is that it contains 3 degrees of freedom. Okay. And I will prove that in a moment. So, this is the idea. So, motion will be described by location of one point O and plus the orientation of I prime, j prime, k prime in terms of this A matrix there. Okay. This is the idea, right. What I am going to do is this: how do I find that A matrix is the question. So, let us start by doing this. U vector, so remember the diagram, U vector was x prime I prime plus y prime j prime plus z prime k prime. Okay. Now, you look at the I prime vector. I prime vector there, so I will just quickly go back to the previous slide. Look at this I prime vector. This I prime vector is basically one vector in space fixed coordinate system. So, I should be able to write I prime vector in terms of I j k, okay, and that is what we do here. So, I have written I prime as a linear combination of I vector, I cap vector, j cap vector and k cap vector, and these coefficients here I have marked them as a11, a12 and a13. How do I find a11? Remember, these are unit vectors I prime, I, j, k, all of them are unit vectors. So, and I, j, k are mutually perpendicular to each other. So, if I take a dot product of this equation with I cap, then what would I get? I cap dot j cap would give me 0, I cap dot k cap would give me 0, I cap dot I cap will give me 1. So, basically A11 is nothing but I prime dot product with I. Then what is A12? That is I prime dot product with j cap, okay, and so on. So, basically once I know I prime, j prime, k prime, I can determine A11, A12 and A13. Similarly, I can write the same thing for the remaining two cases. J prime cap also can be written in terms of I cap, j cap and k cap. So, basically this gives me 9 numbers A11, A12 and all the way up to A33. Now, you take this I prime and substitute it back here. So, remember there is a x prime, I prime. For I prime, I am going to substitute this expression here. So, once I do that, this is what I would get. So, when I substitute I prime, I would get A11 x1. When I substitute j prime also contains I, that is A21, that is A21 y prime, A31 z prime, I cap. So, this is basically I will have 9 terms in the expansion of this. You collect all the I cap terms, you collect all the j cap terms and you collect all the k cap terms, and this would be the answer. And now compare this with what are these coordinates of u with respect to I, j, k. So, all of this must be equal to x, the second bracket here must be equal to y and the third bracket must be equal to z. Okay. So, let me write that. I can write that in terms of a matrix equation. X is equal to A11 x prime plus A21 y prime plus A31 z prime, and similarly remaining 2 rows. Okay. There I have got my A matrix. So, A matrix can be found simply by looking at the dot product between I prime, j prime, I j prime and so on. Okay. And it is peculiar. Notice the way this matrix actually turns out. The entry here is A11. Typically, when you write matrix, you would write this entry as A12, but I have written it as A21. Remember, that is this entry here, okay, A21. So, this is your A matrix. Notice actually this A matrix can be constructed very easily. If you look at this I prime, the 3 numbers there A11, A12, A13 are basically 3 components along I, j and k. You take those 3 components, put them in the column vector. So, basically this is nothing but I prime, this is nothing but j prime and this is nothing but k prime. So, all you need to do to calculate the A matrix, this is all we need to do. Okay. All I need to do is put that I prime in the first column, j prime in the second column and k prime in the third column. Okay. Now, you look at how many components, how many of those 9 numbers are independent. Remember, I prime dot product with I prime, that must be equal to 1. Now, you go back to this equation here. If I look at this equation, the first one, take a dot product of I prime with itself. If I take a dot product with itself, what I get? A11 square plus A12 square plus A13 square, this must be equal to 1. That is one equation. So, basically A11, A12, A13 are not independent numbers. There is one equation connecting all 3. Similarly, j prime dot j prime is also equal to 1. k prime dot k prime is also equal to 1. That means there are 3 conditions straight away. Wait, there are more, because I prime dot j prime must be equal to 0. If I take I prime dot j prime, here I have I prime, here I have j prime. What is the dot product? Dot product is basically A11 into A21 plus A12, right here, A12 into A22 plus A13 into A23, and this sum must be equal to 0. Okay. Basically 3 more conditions, because I prime dot j prime dot k prime and k prime dot I prime, all of them must be 0. So, there are total of 6 conditions. So, 6 conditions, I am going to write them very neatly in this fashion. So, if I had, for example, in this one, I and j are equal to 1 each in this equation. If I and j both are equal to 1, then it would be A1k, A1k, that must be equal to delta ij, but I and j are equal to 1. So, that must be equal to 1, and if I is not equal to j, then this dot product should be equal to 0. So, compactly I can write these 6 equations here. Okay. And because there are 6 in some sense constraints on these numbers, 9 numbers, basically only 3 numbers are independent. Okay. That is how it comes to 3 parameters. So, A matrix can be completely determined in terms of just 3 parameters. Okay. Remaining ones can be obtained using all these conditions here. Okay. This condition here, does it look like a matrix multiplication? But just wait, I need to, so k index must come first and j index must go second, which means I must take a transpose of this. So, basically these 6 conditions can also be written as A transpose A must be equal to identity in the matrix form. So, this is your A matrix. A matrix is special. A transpose A must be identity, vice versa also. I mean, the A transpose also must be equal to identity. Okay. And such a matrix is called as orthogonal matrix. And in a moment we will look at the properties of this orthogonal matrix. So, now we have come down to this. The motion of rigid body is specified by motion of one point O, and the motion, or in some sense change of this A vector, A matrix as the body moves, and A matrix contains the information about the body fixed coordinate system. Body fixed coordinate system, I prime, j prime, k prime are sitting there in that one. Okay, fine. Now, let me take one example. So, here is a simple example. This is your space fixed coordinate system, that is x and that is y, and there is this disk which rolls along the x axis, and there is no slippage. So, it simply rolls. The diameter of this disk is b. Okay. So, this center of the disk O is at the height of b. That is where I will choose my point O. And remember this, most of the time till now I did not say anything about the choice of point O. Wouldn't it be better to choose it as a center of mass of the rigid body? Usually that would be the best choice, but that need not be the choice always. Okay. Now, here of course, assuming that O also has a center of mass of the disk there. So, let me choose point O as the point whose coordinates I will give you, and I am going to construct this body fixed coordinate system. So, the 2 axes that I am drawn there, they are basically I prime and j prime. Now, as the coin rolls, what happens to this body fixed coordinate system? that rotates. Okay. So, suppose it has travelled certain distance, say it is travelling with uniform speed, let us say. So, the point O is travelling with uniform speed, it covers a distance of v naught t in time t. During that time, the coin has rotated about the axis perpendicular to the coin and passing through O. Okay. So, the coordinate system here would have rotated. Your x axis I prime vector now goes like this, makes certain angle, it has turned through the angle theta there, and we can write down all the relationships there. R naught we know is travelling with uniform speed, whose coordinates with respect to space are v naught t. So, I will choose this as x is equal to 0, v naught t at time t, then the distance along y direction is b and z direction is 0, basically z vector comes out of the board. What is theta? Theta is function of time t because the coin rolls, and that would exactly be equal to v naught t divided by the radius. So, basically along the circumference it would have travelled the distance theta times the radius b times theta, that must be exactly equal to v naught t. Okay. So, that gives me theta, and the point P here, what would be its coordinates at t is equal to 0? Its coordinates at t is equal to 0 would be b comma 0 with respect to the space coordinate system. What would be coordinates of point P with respect to the body fixed coordinate system? It actually sits on the x prime axis. So, that would simply be 0 0. Okay. Those are the coordinates with respect to the body fixed coordinate system. As the body rotates, of course, the point P has come here, but so has I prime, okay, so has x prime axis. So, the coordinates of point P with respect to body fixed coordinate system still remain b 0 0, but coordinates of point P with respect to space coordinate system, they have changed. And how would I calculate that? So, now look at nu I prime, nu j prime, nu k prime. Nu I prime, I write it in terms of I and j, I cap and j cap. J prime I can write, you can write that using the geometry here. Okay. You can just look at the geometry, you can drop the perpendiculars on I cap and j cap and you can get the coefficients there. So, this angle here is theta. So, this angle here between this horizontal line and your I prime axis is also theta, and k prime of course is equal to k. And let us construct the A matrix. All I need to do is take this I prime, put it here, this is 0 times k cap there. So, I get this A matrix. Okay. This is cos theta, this is minus sin theta, cos theta 0 and 0 0 1. Okay. This A matrix contains the time dependence. How? Because theta depends on time. Remember, theta is v naught t by b. Okay. So, A matrix is time dependent. And finally, if I want the space coordinates of point P, which is eventually the exercise that we wanted to do, P as a function of time t basically is RO, that is this. Space coordinates of point O are v naught t b 0 plus matrix A into, what do you put here? The coordinates of point P with respect to body fixed coordinate system, and that is b 0 0. Okay. And I already know what A is. Do this calculation and show that it is just v naught t times, basically when you multiply this, it is v naught t plus b cos theta and b minus b sin theta. And do you recognize this? X is equal to this and y is equal to this. Do you recognize this curve, that is basically cycloid, and we know that is exactly what this point P will do. Point P does a cycloid motion there, okay, and that has come out neatly here. So, the advantage of this is there are 3 parameters in the motion of O, point O, and 3 parameters in matrix A. And that is how we describe the motion of rigid bodies. Okay. Now, matrix A eventually will connect with so called as the Euler angles, but the really if you want to understand how we describe the motion, that is basically through this matrix here A, or through body fixed coordinate system. So, I will in next few minutes I will focus on the matrix A and just let us figure out few properties of this matrix. Now, A is an orthogonal matrix. I already described that, because the 3 rows, if you consider each row or each column as a 3-dimensional vector, then you can take the dot product of first row with the second row with third row, those must be 0, or in other words the 3 columns or 3 rows should represent the 3 mutually perpendicular unit axes, and basically those are I prime, j prime and k prime. Mathematically, of course, it is written as A transpose A is equal to I, and that also must be equal to A transpose. And these are the equations we wrote earlier. Okay. These come from the fact that I prime, j prime, k prime, they are mutually orthogonal unit vectors. And you can also write this slightly differently. If you look at A transpose is equal to identity, that also means that inverse of A must be A transpose. Okay. Now, if I take a determinant of this part, if I take determinant of this equation here, then I get determinant of A transpose into determinant of A is equal to determinant of I, but determinant of I is 1. Okay. Determinant of A transpose will be same as determinant of A. So, you get determinant of A squared must be equal to plus 1. So, determinant of A must always be equal to either plus 1 or minus 1. And the claim that I would make is that this determinant must always be equal to plus 1, because remember, when you take a rigid body, its right-handedness is preserved. Okay? It suddenly does not become left-handed system. That means I prime dot j prime cross k prime, this must be equal to always plus 1. But that is exactly, remember, I prime is the first column, j prime and k prime are second and third column. This is exactly the determinant of the A matrix that we were talking about. That must be equal to plus 1. So, out of these two choices, plus 1 and minus 1, for our rigid body motion, it must always be simply rotation, and the rotation means the determinant must be equal to plus 1. These are also called as spatial orthogonal matrices. Okay. These are not just orthogonal, but they are spatial in the sense the determinant must be equal to plus 1. It turns out that the matrices whose determinant is equal to minus 1, they are in some sense generalized rotation, but they actually turn out to be reflection. Okay. If you take for example the A matrix, which has only diagonal entries, which is 1, 1 and minus 1, determinant is minus 1, and you can see that this matrix in fact is reflection in xy plane, okay, and that has a determinant of minus 1. In fact, we will not show this here, but I will just tell you this piece of information, that whenever these matrices, orthogonal matrices, have negative determinant, you can always express it as a reflection in some plane. Okay. Fine. It preserves distances. This is very clear, because if I take x prime square plus y prime square plus z prime square, I can write this as a inner product of two vectors, but in the matrix notation it can be easily written as a so if I write x prime y prime z prime in a column matrix, take its transpose, it will become a row matrix. It is a row matrix multiplied by column matrix, that will give you x prime square plus y prime square plus z prime square. But what is x prime y prime z prime? X prime y prime z prime is related to x y z through this equation, through this transformation matrix A. And if I substitute that here, what I will get is x y z A transpose A and x y z, but A transpose A is identity, and hence this is just simply equal to x square plus y square plus z square. So, orthogonal transformations preserve the distances, okay? Distance between 2 points, length of the vector, these are all preserved under the transformation by orthogonal matrix. This we know, because if we are just merely making a rotation in space, then all the lengths of the vectors are preserved. What kind of other transformations we could have? There could be stretching. You see, if you have a transformation which doubles the length along x axis and changes the length along y axis, that of course will not preserve. That will also be a linear transformation, but will not preserve distances. In that sense, rotations are special. Okay. The eigenvalues of A matrix, they are always equal to 1 and then some complex number, but unimodular and its complex conjugate. The eigenvalues are always 3. In case some of you do not have introduction to or do not know what eigenvalues are, just bear with me for 5 minutes. I will explain the result, but it is not crucial to understand the mathematics here at this moment. So, eigenvalues of A are, so first thing I will show is that the eigenvalue, one of the eigenvalue must always be equal to 1. So, you start by looking at A minus I times A transpose. If I multiply A transpose A transpose, I get identity, and then I get I into this, that is A transpose. Okay. So, I will get A transpose there. In the second step, I will take the determinant of this. This is also A transpose, I will write that in a moment. So, this is basically determinant of A minus I into determinant of A transpose, and look at this I minus A transpose. I is already a symmetric matrix. So, I minus A transpose basically same as transpose of I minus A, and take a determinant of that. But we also know that the determinant of transpose of a matrix is same as the determinant of the matrix. So, write this as determinant of A minus I, then determinant of A transpose must be same as determinant of A, but in the last slide we argued that the determinant of A is equal to plus 1, and you have determinant of I minus A transpose, but we know that is same as determinant of I minus A itself. And now I will take minus sign out of this. So, you have matrix, if you take a minus sign out, from each row one minus sign will come out. So, it will be minus 1 to the power 3. In fact, it is a general result. If you have d by d matrix, then determinant of minus b is equal to minus 1 to the power d into determinant of b. Use that here, and in our case d is 3. So, basically you would have minus sign there, and that says determinant of A minus I is equal to 0, and this basically means this is determinant of 1 into I. So, 1 is one of the singular values or eigenvalues of the matrix A, and the remaining 2 also can be very quickly figured out. If I take a some lambda as a eigenvalue of A, then Ax is equal to lambda x. Let us say x is a vector. So, x is the eigenvector corresponding to eigenvalue 1. So, Ax is equal eigenvalue lambda. So, Ax will be equal to lambda x. Now, you take a Hermitian conjugate of this. That means, you take a transpose and complex conjugate. So, if I take a complex conjugate, that is called as a Hermitian conjugate adjoint. This basically dagger implies that it is a transposed and complex conjugate has been taken. A transpose, why have we not taken the complex conjugation of A? But A is a real matrix. So, complex conjugation will give me the same A matrix again, and transpose must be equal to lambda star x dagger, and then you take the product of these two. So, if I take x dagger x, remember this equation, what is x dagger? We have already taken a transpose. So, x vector would have been a complex vector, now becomes a row vector or row matrix, and then this is 3 by 3 matrix and so on. So, basically when I take a product of these two, I get x dagger x, but that is same as Ax dagger Ax, and that must be equal to lambda square. And what is x dagger x? That is basically 1. Okay. So, that is how you get lambda square is equal to 1. So, if I have 3 eigenvalues, one of them is 1, the second one is lambda, then the product of these 3, 1 lambda lambda prime, that must be equal to determinant of A, that is 1, and hence lambda into lambda prime must be equal to 1, and that immediately tells you that lambda prime must be equal to lambda star. Remember, these are unimodular numbers, because all eigenvalues must have the absolute value equal to plus 1. So, this would simply become lambda prime is equal to lambda star. Do not worry about this mathematical stuff here, in case you are not introduced to it. What it all means is this, that eigenvalue is 1, that means in case of rotation in space there is one line which remains invariant under or remains unchanged under the operation of rotation, and instinctively we know what that is basically axis of rotation. So, if I have something like this, if I hold these 2 points, the line joining these 2 points would be axis of rotation about which this body is rotating. Okay. Every rotation, so whole of this mathematical exercise is to say that all rotations necessarily have one axis of rotation and then the angle of rotation. Okay. So, the fact that one of the eigenvalues is 1 simply means that. Okay. And depending on this eigenvalues, I can categorize these matrices. The kinds that we get is this: if all 3 eigenvalues are equal and real, then lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3, all of them they will be equal to 1. What kind of A matrix you would get? There is only one possibility. Only identity matrix has this property, okay, where all 3 eigenvalues are equal to 1. This basically is do nothing. So, I prime, j prime, k prime would coincide with I, j, k. The other possibility where you can get real eigenvalues, all 3 real eigenvalues are when lambda 1 is equal to plus 1 and lambda 2 and lambda 3 are minus 1, and that is basically rotation by pi. Look at z axis. In case of rotation about z axis by pi degrees, what happens to x? X goes to minus x, y goes to minus y. Those are basically 2 minus 1 eigenvalues, eigenvectors, and z remains as it is. That is basically eigenvector corresponding to lambda is equal to 1. Okay. So, this is the mathematical framework which goes in describing the motion of rigid bodies. So, for rigid bodies I am going to need 6 generalized coordinates. I will choose 3 coordinates as the coordinates of one point of the rigid body, and the remaining 3 basically I would have said describes the orientation. Now, we have made that meaning of word orientation very clear. It basically is telling you where I prime, j prime, k prime, the 3 unit vectors attached to the body fixed frame, they are there. Okay? And this A matrix describes basically I prime, j prime, k prime. And how many parameters are needed? Basically only 3 parameters are needed, because we know even though A contains 9 entries, there are 6 constraints, and that is why I only need 3 parameters to describe this particular A matrix. Okay. So, with this in the next week, in the next class, I will talk about the specific choices that we need to make. See, I just have proven this to up to this point, that A matrix would require 3 parameters, but I did not say which 3 parameters we would choose. Okay. The next class I am going to describe how to translate A matrix with just 3 parameters, which we do not see immediately, into what is called as rotation axis and angle, which is called as angle axis representation, or representation in terms of Euler angles, and variety of conventions that we use to describe this matrix there.